afternoon, BookTube. Lynette here. As you may have noticed, I've changed my channel name. I'm now Lynette Reads instead of Nettie Reads Too Much. I wasn't jiving with the original name, although I do read too much. So I just thought I'd shorten it a bit and put in my proper name. So yes, I'm now Lynette Reads. So welcome to Sunday in my house. I'm actually a day later filming this than I normally am. I just couldn't get organised and in a position where I could film yesterday. So I'm filming today and going to post this as soon as I've edited it later on. So again, week 4 is my weekly update. Just thought I'd come on and let you know how I've been getting on with reading in the past week. I finished finished 3 books. Sorry, I've got notes this side. I finished 3 books this week, and but I don't feel like I've been reading all that much, especially over the last few days. I've been getting into some colouring instead. I felt that I've needed something other than reading to relax me. But yeah, so in terms of books finished, it was a good week, but I don't think I've read quite as much as I normally do. So to update you on my current read-alongs that I'm doing, I'm, again, as per last week, I'm 4 chapters behind on Game of Thrones, so I need to read another 4 chapters of that today. Otherwise, I've got to try and read 5 tomorrow. Again, going well, I'm enjoying it. Things are starting to snowball and happen. So the author George R.R. Martin has started to pull on the threads, which will bring you to the culmination of this book. But also the threads that will lead you into the next book as well. So not doing too badly. I'm getting on, I'm enjoying it. So I shall continue reading and see where I am next week. The other readathon that I had going was the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. And actually that is one of the books that I finished this week. I actually managed to finish it on Thursday evening. Friday evening. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I was really enjoying all the little stories about Geralt's towns that he'd been in and jobs that he'd done for them. But when it came to the end of it, I was kind of like, I didn't feel compelled to start the second book. I'm going to give the second book a go in February, because that's when Elliot Brooks, who's hosting this read-along, will be reading the next one, and I'll see how I go with that one. I don't know whether it's just because it was short stories. Sometimes I do feel a little underwhelmed when I get to the end of a short story book, rather than, oh, I need to get on and read more by this author or this person and see more from this story. But it was a good story. There was some great world building, creatures that I've never heard of before, creatures that obviously we know about, vampires, etc. And yeah, it was quite interesting, and I'll see what book 2 brings. The other 2 books that I finished this week, the first book is Summoned to the 13th Grave by Dorinda Jones. This is the final book in Dorinda Jones' Charlie Davidson series. So I can't really tell you much about what happens in the book because it would spoil the previous 12 books. All I can tell you is I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I laughed, I cried, I smiled, I was angry. I felt the full range of emotions, and when I put the book down, when I got to the last pages, the last line is like, because not everything is tied up. There are some stories that aren't finished, but that's deliberate because they're not actually part of Charlie and Ray's story. So hopefully, and the actual author Dorinda Jones has said herself in an interview that she is hoping at some point to come back to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and will be able to tell the story that's not been finished, and that the last line of this book is a big hint that there is more to come from this world, from all the side characters. Unfortunately, Charlie and Reyes wouldn't be so prominent in any future books from this world, but all the other characters that we've met are likely to be in any spin-off. So it was really, really great. It was a brilliant end. She managed to tie off everybody's little threads and storylines very, very well. People that you didn't think would be important enough to get their ending, she gave an ending to, and people that you just, yes, it was just so good, so good. And I thoroughly recommend the entire series. If you want a little bit of steam with your romance, if you want a little bit of paranormal with your romance, give this series a go. It really is fun. Charlie is a really sassy character, and Reyes is smoking hot in attitude as well as looks. And yes, you will not be disappointed if you enjoy paranormal romance and with a little bit of humour. So thoroughly recommend these. The other book that I finished this week, again, is another series. So that's 2 series down this year that I finished, which is really good. And that is Magnificat by Julian May. This is the 3rd book in the science fiction series I've been reading, the Galactic Milieu series. And boy, did this book grip me from start to finish. I haven't been able to read anything else while I've been reading Magnificat, which is unusual for me because I can read more than one book at a time. So I did find actually that this book consumed me so much that when I was picking up my Kindle, even in the half-hour lunch break, when I would want to read something, you know, like the Game of Thrones, reading just one chapter of Game of Thrones, I couldn't pick it up. I had to keep reading Magnificat. I knew certain things that were going to happen anyway, because they'd been hinted at in previous books, but also one of my work colleagues, one of my friends at work, has recommended the series to me, and she's been talking me through the series because I think I've said this before. There's a bridge book between this series and a series called The Saga of the Exiles that she wrote, and that book was very, very difficult to go into. There's lots and lots of info dumping, and the first half of the second book is the first half of the first book in the Galactic Milieu trilogy, which follows on from the bridge book. Again, because she'd written it before, there was still lots of world building that she was doing, and it was a little bit repetitive at times, but I found it difficult, and my friend has actually talked me through all those things, and she said to me, well, have you got to this point yet? Has this bit happened? Did that happen? And so she's kind of been reliving the books through me, in a way, because she hasn't read them for quite a while, and she wants to reread them now. But she kept me going, and I'm so glad she did, because Diamond Mask, which was the second book, which I talked about last week, I really, really loved, and the Magnificat, I just could not put it down. They're science fiction novels. They're set in futuristic Earth, not too far in the future. We're in the 2070s, 2080s in this book. But a lot of what's gone on with human minds and where we are in our development, all of that has happened in the previous books. So now we are talking about a rebellion that's happening, which does start in the earlier books. And also it's how they find out who Fury is and how they track Fury down and eventually stop him. That was very sad in a way, as well as very... so yes, I do thoroughly recommend it, because you do get to a point where you're just like, I need to know what's happening next. So thoroughly recommend that series. As my friend did with me, I would recommend you start with Intervention, which is the bridge book. It gives you all the world building. that you need to be able to read Galactic Milieu and really understand what's going on when you pick up Jack the Bodiless, book 1. So I do recommend you start there. Or if not, I think the other route that my friend has recommended is that start with The Many Coloured Lands, which is the first book in the Saga of the Exiles series, and then read right the way through, read the 4 books in that series, Intervention, and then Galactic Milieu, because they are connected. And you need to, yes, one leads into the other, and it does go around in a loop. So at some point in the next month, probably, I will be picking up The Many Coloured Lands and continuing on with Julian May's works. So when I finished Magnificat, I was still in the mood to read. Sometimes finishing great books actually makes me want to continue reading. And especially if there's if that's the end of a series, I need to start something else. I'd actually done a pick for my next Romanceopoly book couple of weeks ago, but I haven't actually started it yet because I've been reading these books and getting these out of the way first. Sorry if I'm jiggling you. And so I decided to pick up the next one that I'd done, and that was Warrior's Way on the Romanceopoly board. And this is to read a book that features a band of warriors. So I decided to pick up the next book in J.R. Ward's Black Dagger Brotherhood Legacy series, and that's Blood Fury. I'm only a few chapters in. I'm only about 10 chapters in. And the main characters, you know who the love interest is going to be. It's Peyton and Novo, so it's patently obvious from the start. There is another character as well that we've really wanted since the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, since about book 12 in that series, 11 or 12 I think it was. We've wanted him to have his happy ever after, and I think he's going to get it in this book as well, which is so good. So we're seeing the beginnings of that as well. And all of the brothers are in there, you know, you're getting little glimpses, they're being mentioned here and there. They're not so much part of it, but because Peyton and Novo are part of they're not part of the Black Dagger Brotherhood, but they are part of a team of that are going out with the brothers and fighting the Lessers, who are the evil representation in this book. So I'm getting on really with that. I don't really want to put it down. I have housework to do today because I neglected it yesterday. So I won't be reading very much today. And like I say, I've still got 4 chapters of Game of Thrones to read to get me up to date to where I should be for today. So I don't know what I'm going to do because we're out this evening as well. So we'll just have to see where we go from there. So I hope you've all had a lovely reading week, and I will speak to you again soon. Bye.